Derek Sterling's hand is a blur. The crack echoes through the ballroom like a gunshot. 200 wedding guests freeze. The orchestra stops mid-note. My head snaps sideways. I taste blood. My daughter screams, "Derek, what did you do?" In the silence, only the photographer's camera flashes, capturing everything. I don't raise my voice. Don't touch my burning cheek. I straighten my jacket. Look at Grace's horrified face. Look at the man she just married. And I walk out. This isn't where the story begins. This is where his ends. My name is Robert Morrison. I'm 62, a Vietnam veteran and agricultural engineer. My wife Kate died 2.5 years ago from ovarian cancer. Some mornings, I still set 2 coffee cups out before I remember. We built Morrison Heritage Vineyards from nothing, 47 acres of abandoned farmland in the Finger Lakes. Our daughter Grace was 3 when we started in 1990. Kate had the vision. I had the patience. 35 years of work. "This is going to be something, Rob," Kate said that first day. "Not just for us, for everyone who comes after." She was right about most things, especially about Derek Sterling. I met Derek 8 years ago. He was 30, a Wall Street analyst turned agricultural entrepreneur. He pitched me on sustainable vineyard technology. I liked his energy. Invested $50,000. The startup failed. I forgave the debt. Then he met Grace at a legal conference in 2018. She was a corporate lawyer in Manhattan. They started dating. I was happy for her. Kate wasn't. "There's something off about him," she told me after a family dinner. "The way he talks about the vineyard, like it's an asset, not a home." I said she was being overprotective. A year later, Kate was diagnosed with cancer. 2 years after that, she was gone. She'd been right all along. The rehearsal dinner was at a lakeside restaurant. 80 guests. Derek stood with champagne. "Tomorrow isn't just about Grace and me," he announced. "It's about legacy. Rob Morrison built something incredible. And tomorrow, we're announcing the next chapter. Grace and I are taking over operations." Applause filled the room. Grace looked surprised but pleased. He hadn't told her about this public announcement. I stood slowly. "Derek," I said calmly, "tomorrow is about you and Grace. Let's keep the focus there." I raised my glass. "To my daughter, may marriage bring you everything you deserve. Not an agreement, not a refusal, a postponement." Derek's smile tightened. I saw the anger flash before he hid it. That night, I walked the vineyard. I couldn't sleep. The moon was bright. The vines whispered in the wind. I went to the oldest section where Kate and I had planted first. Our initials are carved in a support post, I+R inside a crooked heart. "He's going to push tomorrow," I said aloud. I still talked to her. I thought about the oak box she'd left me, locked in my office safe. She'd given it to me 6 months before she died. "Don't open it unless you have to," she'd said, her hands trembling. "But when a man shows you who he really is, believe him the first time." I knew the time had come. Wedding morning. I was fighting with my bow tie when Derek knocked. He walked in carrying a leather portfolio. Didn't wait to be invited. He opened it on my dresser. Architectural renderings, professional, glossy. Sterling Estates and Winery at Seneca Lake. Where our farmhouse stood, there was glass and steel. Where Kate's garden grew, an infinity pool. Where we'd scattered our dog's ashes, a parking lot. "This is the future, Rob," Derek said. "A destination resort, 40 million in development potential." I looked at the images. Strangers laughing where Kate's oak tree stood. "This is what Grace wants?" I asked quietly. "This is what's smart. You're 62. The farm's too much. This secures Grace's future. This honors Kate's legacy." He slid papers toward me. "Asset transfer to an LLC. Grace and I run operations. You keep a minority stake. Everyone wins. Just sign. I looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw what Kate had seen. No, I said. His smile faltered. Rob, be reasonable. My answer is no, Derek. His jaw clenched. You think holding on to the past makes you noble? It makes you a stubborn old man who can't admit the world's moved on. I stayed silent. He leaned forward. This is happening, with or without your cooperation. Grace is my wife now. You can walk away with dignity, or watch your relationship with your daughter fall apart. Your choice. Get out of my room, I said quietly. He stared at me, then smiled again, cold. We'll see how you feel after the ceremony. He left. I called my lawyer, David Chen. It's happening, I said. Get everything ready. The wedding ceremony was beautiful. Grace looked radiant walking down the aisle. For 30 minutes, I let myself just be a father watching his daughter get married. The reception transformed the same venue with flowers and candlelight. 200 guests, live orchestra, champagne flowing. I sat at my table with David Chen beside me, quiet and alert. He's going to make his move, David murmured. Question is when. We didn't wait long. The gentle clinking of crystal silenced the room. Derek stood, microphone in hand, looking every inch the successful groom. I want to say a few words, he began. He spoke beautifully about Grace, called her his light, his partner, his future. She dabbed at her eyes. Then he turned to me. I want to thank my incredible father-in-law, Rob Morrison, a Vietnam veteran, a man who knows the value of hard work. He built Morrison Heritage Vineyards from absolutely nothing, 35 years of sacrifice and dedication. The spotlight found me. And tonight, Derek continued, his voice rising, Rob is going to ensure that legacy continues. As his ultimate wedding gift to his only daughter. Tonight, Rob is giving us the keys to Morrison Heritage Vineyards, so Grace and I can guide it into a prosperous future. The room erupted in applause. 200 people clapping for a generous gesture that had never been discussed, never been agreed to. I looked at Grace. Her hand covered her mouth, tears streaming. She believed it. She believed this beautiful lie. The applause died. Derek handed off the microphone and moved through the crowd toward me. The photographer followed. He leaned down close, smiling for the cameras. The keys, Rob, he whispered. Don't ruin her perfect day. I looked past him at my daughter, then back at him. I told you this morning, I said quietly. No. His smile twitched. Don't be a fool. Give them to me. No. His hand moved fast. The crack of his palm against my face silenced the room instantly. My head snapped sideways. The chandeliers tilted. I tasted blood. The photographer's flash went off. Grace screamed. Derek, what did you do? I pushed my chair back slowly. Stood. The bruise was already forming, a dull throb radiating through my skull. I didn't touch my face. I looked only at Grace, at her shattered expression. Tried to tell her with my eyes that I loved her, that this wasn't her fault. Then I straightened my jacket and walked out. I drove straight to the winery, not the house. Couldn't face those empty rooms. I parked by the barn and went inside. Cool air, the smell of oak barrels and aging wine. My space, a place of work and reason. I sat in my office chair and called David. It happened, I said. He slapped me, in front of everyone. Silence. Then, don't call Grace. Don't answer the door. Lock up and wait. I'll be there at 7 a.m. He paused. Rob, open the box. It's time. I hung up and walked to the old iron safe, spun the combination, our anniversary, October 15th. The heavy door swung open. There, on top of the property deeds, was Kate's plain oak box. I'd made it myself 30 years ago from fallen oak. Dovetail joints I'd learned from a book. Made it for her gardening seeds. She'd kept other things instead. I lifted it out, placed it in the lamplight. The wood was warm, worn smooth by her hands. I opened the lid. First, a small black leather ledger. I opened it. Kate's elegant handwriting filled every page, each entry dated and noted. $5,000, June 12, 2020. Security deposit emergency, $10,000, April 5, 2021. Car accident settlement, $7,500, November 30th, 2021. Tax bill miscalculation, page after page. Derek coming to us with emergencies, bad luck, promises to pay it back. On the final page, Kate had circled the total in red ink twice, $127,000, none of it repaid. In second, a silver thumb drive. I plugged it into my laptop. Files appeared, bank statements, credit card bills showing $89,000 in debt, offshore, account documents from the Cayman Islands, transaction records from victorypoker.ag showing $340,000 in losses to mob-connected gambling sites, detailed forensics of Derek's failed cryptocurrency fund, how he'd lost $8.4 million of investor money. Kate had found it all, documented everything, built a case while she was dying. A third, a thick manila envelope sealed with red wax. I broke the seal. Inside, partnership agreement, Morrison Heritage Vineyards and Tanaka Holdings. I stared at the signatures. Kate's, clear and strong, and beside it, Kenji Tanaka's. Tanaka. 20 years ago, when his company was just an idea, I'd co-signed his first business loan, secured it with 10 acres of my land when no bank would help him. Now he ran a multi-billion-dollar agricultural investment firm. I read the agreement carefully. Kate had negotiated a partnership 5 years ago, making our vineyard the centerpiece of Tanaka's Finger Lakes initiative. But the genius was Clause 7B, the escalation provision. In the event of documented hostility or coercion attempt against primary owner, the fair market purchase price shall increase by 15% per incident, and Tanaka Holdings' first right of refusal becomes mandatory purchase obligation. Derek's slap hadn't just humiliated me, it had triggered a legal trap Kate set years ago. If Derek ever got control of this property, he couldn't develop it or flip it. He'd be forced to sell it to Tanaka Holdings at an escalated price far below his $40 million development dreams. Fourth, a tiny voice recorder. I pressed play. Derek's voice, smooth and condescending. Isabel, please be reasonable. Rob is a great farmer, but he's too sentimental to see the big picture. Then Kate's voice, weak from illness but pure steel underneath. Derek, the big picture is the one you see from the front porch, not on a banker's spreadsheet. The farm is not an asset. It is our home. The answer is no. The recording ended. I sat there staring at the 4 items, a ledger of his debts, a drive of his desperation, an agreement that made him powerless, a recording of his treachery. This wasn't a box of memories. This was a box of ammunition. Kate had been fighting a war I didn't know existed, protecting me, protecting our legacy, even as she was dying. David Chen arrived at 7 a.m. sharp, briefcase in one hand, thermos in the other. 40 years of friendship. He came into the office without knocking. His eyes went to the bruise on my cheek, now dark purple. He didn't ask if I was okay. We were past that. His gaze fell to the items on my desk. So, he said quietly, this is Kate's insurance policy. He poured coffee, and we sat in silence, 2 old men preparing for war. David examined each piece with surgical precision, read the ledger, his lips pressed thin. $127,000, clear pattern of financial dependency. He reviewed the thumb drive files. But this desperation. He didn't just want the farm. He needed it. Without this asset, his whole house of cards collapses. He listened to the voice recording, eyes closed. When Kate's voice came through, weak but unbreakable, his jaw clenched. Character evidence. Intent to deceive. Finally, the partnership agreement. He read it once fast, then slowly. A smile spread across his face. My God, Rob. Kate was a genius. He tapped the document. 5 years ago, she negotiated this partnership with Tanaka Holdings. Your vineyard becomes the centerpiece of their sustainable agriculture initiative, but Clause 7B, this escalation provision, it's brilliant. Explain it, I said. If Derek shows any documented hostility or coercion, he can't develop this property. It triggers a mandatory sale to Tanaka Holdings, and every hostile act increases the price by 15%. He leaned forward. The slap last night? That's documented hostility. If Derek somehow got control, he wouldn't get his $40 million flip. He'd be forced to sell to Tanaka for a fraction of that. I looked at Kate's signature. She'd seen it all coming. What do we do? I asked. We make one phone call. Let Tanaka know about the attempted fraud. Then we watch Derek's world collapse. David called Tanaka's chief legal counsel. Brief and devastating. This is David Chen, calling for Robert Morrison of Morrison Heritage Vineyards. We're reaffirming our commitment to the partnership agreement. We're also informing you that Derek Sterling has made a hostile attempt to secure control of this asset, including documented physical assault. We wanted to ensure all partners were aware. Thank you. He hung up. What happens now? I asked. Now we wait for the dominoes to fall. I can imagine what happened next, though I wasn't there. Derek and Grace in Bora Bora, day 3 of their honeymoon. 4 Seasons Resort, $45,000 package Derek had booked months earlier when he still believed he'd have the farm secured. He'd be mid-apology. It was the stress, Grace, the pressure. It wasn't me. Grace wanting desperately to believe him. Then his phone would ping, email from his investment partner. Subject, urgent, funding suspended. His majority partner pulling out, citing instability of key assets. Before he could process it, another email. From Tanaka Holdings. Emergency board meeting, mandatory attendance. His presence required in New York in 48 hours to discuss material breaches and financial exposure. Paradise dissolving around him. What is it? Grace would ask, seeing his face go white. We have to go back to New York, now. The honeymoon was over. 3 days later, I drove to New York. David met me at his office, and together we went to Tanaka Holdings. 50 floors of glass and steel. The elevator opened to marble floors, dark wood, a view of Manhattan stretching to the horizon. We were shown to the boardroom. Long, minimalist, dominated by a table of polished black granite, one wall entirely glass, looking down on the city. At the head of the table stood Kenji Tanaka, silver-haired now, but the same quiet, powerful presence. He turned as we entered and smiled. Robert, he said, shaking my hand firmly. It has been too long. Kenji, thank you for seeing us. The honor is mine. His eyes touched the fading bruise on my cheek. He understood everything without a word. We sat beside him. Tea was served in simple ceramic cups. We waited. 15 minutes later, the door opened. Derek Sterling walked in. He looked like a ghost, wrinkled suit, crooked tie, face pale and slick with sweat, the swagger completely gone. He was expecting his development partners. He saw Kenji Tanaka. Then he saw me. The shock hit him like a physical blow. He grabbed a chair for support, staring. He couldn't process it. Couldn't understand how the old farmer he'd assaulted could be sitting at this table in this room. Mr. Tanaka, he stammered. Rob, what is this? Tanaka didn't answer. Didn't even look at him. He simply sipped his tea, eyes on the skyline. Then, with a small gesture, he tilted his head toward David Chen. The message was clear. You're not important enough for me to address. You'll deal with my lawyer. I stood then. Didn't let Derek sit down. I placed Kate's oak box on the table. Opened it slowly. My wife left me this before she died, I said, looking directly at him. She was very thorough. I pulled out the ledger, slid it across the polished granite. $127,000 in unpaid loans, every dollar documented, every promise you broke written in her handwriting. Derek's hands clenched. That was family help, that's not... I placed the thumb drive beside it. Your financial collapse, the crypto fund that lost $8.4 million, the poker debts, the offshore accounts, the $340,000 you owe to mob-connected gambling sites. His jaw worked. No sound came out. I pulled out the voice recorder, pressed play. His own voice filled the room, smooth, condescending, trying to manipulate my dying wife into signing over the farm. When it ended, I looked at him. Kate knew what you were 2 years before she died. She gave me everything I needed to stop you. This is entrapment, Derek said, his voice shaking. Illegal surveillance. David stood, placing the partnership agreement in front of Tanaka. The escalation provision, Clause 7B. The moment you struck Mr. Morrison, this property became subject to mandatory purchase by Tanaka Holdings. Your development deal is void. Derek's face went from pale to red. You can't do this. I have investors, contracts. Tanaka spoke for the first time. Quiet, but it silenced everything. 20 years ago, Robert co-signed my first business loan when no bank would. He risked his own land for a stranger. He stood, looking down at Derek. That is the kind of man you struck. Tanaka's voice remained quiet, but each word landed like a hammer. Your debts are now mine, Mr. Sterling. Your assets are frozen. Our lawyers are coordinating with federal investigators regarding securities fraud and wire fraud related to your cryptocurrency fund. Derek shot to his feet. You can't. I'll fight this. You'll do nothing, I said. For the first time since the wedding, we stood eye to eye. You had a choice, Derek, I said quietly. You could have been the man my daughter thought you were. You could have built something real. Instead, you tried to steal what Kate and I spent 35 years building. I picked up the oak box, closed it carefully. You were supposed to be different. I walked to the door, stopped, looked back at him one last time. The farm you wanted so badly? It's going to teach students about sustainable agriculture, about building things that last, about integrity. I paused. Things you'll never understand. I left him there, collapsed in his chair, while David's paperwork spelled out his destruction in neat legal prose. Kate had prepared everything. I just had to deliver it. The days after were quiet. David handled the legal aftermath. I returned to the vineyard, to the familiar rhythms of the land. I worked in the west field, where the youngest vines were establishing themselves. Delicate work, training new shoots, clearing away what might choke their growth. 2 weeks after New York, I saw a car coming up the driveway. Grace's car. It moved slowly, hesitantly. Parked near the house, but she didn't get out for 20 minutes. When she finally did, my heart ached. She was thin. Her expensive clothes hung wrong, like a costume from someone else's life. She saw me in the field and started walking toward me. Her city shoes sank into the soft earth. I kept working. Dad, I made another cut with the pruning shears. Careful, precise. I'm so sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I was so blind. Your mother tried to warn you. I didn't look at her. 2 years before she died, you told her she was being paranoid, that her illness was making her see things that weren't there. Grace made a sound like she'd been hit. She died thinking you'd chosen him over us. I finally looked at her. Her face was wet with tears, hands shaking. Did you? I asked. Choose him over us? I thought... She couldn't finish. Sat down hard on the ground, sobbing. I let her cry. The vines still needed work. The season didn't stop for heartbreak. After a long time, I set down my shears. There's a guest house, I said. You can stay there if you want, but you'll work, real work. Not as my daughter, as an employee. Same salary any Cornell program director would make. She looked up, confused. Maybe in time you'll earn daughter back, but you don't get to just walk in and have it because you're sorry. I don't deserve... No, I agreed. You don't. But your mother believed in second chances. So you get one. Just one. Don't waste it. I pulled Kate's old work gloves from my bag. Small, worn, shaped by her hands over 35 years. We start with the basics. I'll teach you what she taught me. Grace took the gloves with shaking hands, barely able to pull them on. We worked in silence the rest of the afternoon. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning. 6 months later. Grace still lived in the guest house. She didn't ask about the main house. She knew she hadn't earned it yet. But she showed up every morning at dawn, worked until dark, asked questions, made mistakes, learned. The Morrison Regenerative Agriculture Institute was official now. The new sign stood at the entrance, carved from fallen oak. Ownership, 40% mine, 40% Tanaka Holdings, 20% Educational Trust. Grace was the institute's director, not because she was my daughter, but because she'd earned it. She taught agricultural law to Cornell students, led sustainability workshops, managed scholarships. People respected her for the work, not the name. One evening, I set 2 places at the dining table for the first time in 3 years. Grace came by to drop off enrollment reports, saw the plates, stopped in the doorway. Dad? Your mother always said you'd come home, I told her. Took you longer than she expected, but she was right. Her eyes filled. Can I? I nodded toward Kate's chair. We had dinner together, talked about harvest yields, student enrollment, the small things that make up a life. When she left, I watched her walk back to the guest house. Tomorrow, I'd ask her to move back into the main house, but tonight, this was enough. David had sent updates about Derek. Plea deal accepted. 18 months at a minimum security federal prison. $127,000 restitution to our family. Structured over 20 years. Wages garnished. Lifetime industry ban as part of his plea agreement. Federal probation records showed him working at his cousin's car wash in Newark. 25% of wages garnished. His LinkedIn profile, once boasting 47,000 followers, deleted. I didn't feel satisfaction. Didn't feel anger. Just complete, like a chapter had closed. And that evening, alone in the farmhouse, I went through Kate's desk. In the locked drawer, I found something I'd never seen, a journal, small, leather-bound, her handwriting on every page. I turned to the last entry, dated 3 days before she died. My hands trembled as I read. Rob, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm guessing Derek showed his true face. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you everything while I was alive. I didn't want you to carry the weight of knowing that the man our daughter loved was a predator. But I couldn't leave you defenseless. The protocol isn't about revenge, my love. It's about protection. Protect Grace from herself. She'll blame herself, but she's not to blame. Protect our legacy. Not the money, the meaning. Protect your heart. You're allowed to be angry, but don't let it consume you. You won not because you were cruel, but because you loved right. You loved me by respecting what I built. You'll love Grace by teaching her to do the same. Trust the plan. Trust yourself. Grace will come home. Be patient. I love you. I'm proud of you. Kate. I sat in the quiet of our bedroom holding that journal and wept, not from grief, though grief was there, but from gratitude for 40 years with a woman who saw the world clearly, who planned for the worst and hoped for the best, who protected the people she loved, even after she was gone. The next morning, Grace and I worked together in the vineyard. Late October, almost time for final harvest. I showed her how to prune the vines, how to cut away what's dead to make room for new growth. "What if I mess it up?" she asked, hesitant with the shears. "You will," I said. "That's how you learn. The vine forgives. The soil forgives. That's the whole point." She smiled then, a real smile, and made the cut. We worked in comfortable silence, the way Kate and I used to. In the distance, students laughed and worked. The institute was alive with purpose. The sun set over Seneca Lake, painting everything gold. A week later, Kenji Tanaka visited. We walked the vineyard together, two old men talking about weather and harvest and the simple good things that make up a life. We stopped at the crest of the hill overlooking the lake, where Kate and I had carved our initials decades ago. I brought 2 glasses and a bottle of our newest vintage, the first one Grace had helped oversee from start to finish. I poured the deep red liquid. The aroma of dark cherries and oak rose in the cool autumn air. I handed Kenji a glass. He held it to the light, admiring the color. He raised his glass. "To Catherine." I raised mine to meet his. The crystal made a small, clean sound in the quiet. I looked past him to where Grace was teaching students, laughing, belonging. "To the things that last," I said. We drank. The wine was good. It tasted of sun and soil and promises kept. That evening, Grace came to the main house for dinner. Not as a guest anymore. She'd moved her things from the guest house that morning. We ate together at the old kitchen table, talked about next year's planting, about expansion plans for the institute, about small daily things. After dinner, she helped me wash dishes. Kate's apron hung on its hook by the sink. Grace reached for it, then hesitated. "Go ahead," I said quietly. She tied it on. It fit her perfectly. We worked side by side in silence. Then she spoke. "Mom knew, didn't she? From the very beginning." "Yes. And she forgave me anyway, before I even asked." "That's what love does," I said. "It forgives before it's earned, but it also demands that you become worthy of it." Grace nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying." "Good," I said. That's exactly what she wanted. Later, standing on the porch, I looked out over the vineyard. The vines stood in silent rows, dark shapes against a sky full of stars. This was the legacy Kate and I had built. Not money, not property, but meaning. Purpose. A place where people could learn to grow things, to build things, to leave the world better than they found it. Derek Sterling had tried to turn it into a transaction, a number on a balance sheet, a quick flip for $40 million. He'd failed because he never understood the simple truth Kate knew from the beginning. Some things can't be bought. Some things can't be sold. Some things can only be earned through patience, through work, through loving the right way. Grace understood that now. She was learning it in the soil, in the vines, in the slow, hard work of rebuilding trust. The Institute would go on. Students would come and learn and carry these lessons forward. And somewhere, in the roots of these vines, in the soil Kate and I had worked for 35 years, our love would continue to grow. That's what legacy really means. Not what you leave behind when you die, but what you plant while you're alive. And this story reminds us that true strength lies not in loud aggression, but in quiet integrity. Loyalty and a life's work are priceless treasures that greed can never conquer. Respect for the past, built on principle, is the only true foundation for a lasting legacy.